Hi, in this video I am going to get the pronunciation of words from an OpenAPI, and then I am going to play them in the console. I'm going to ask the user for the word that they want to know the pronunciation of, and then I'm going to get the audio URLs from the API, and the API can have multiple pronunciations for words. So I'm going to play all of them. Here, first I'm going to write the function that gets the word from the user. I want to write it in a while loop because I want the program to keep reprompting the user for another input if the type of the input is wrong. For example, if the user inputs a digit instead of a word. Oh, actually, I forgot to again do it in here. Try. Okay. I'm going to ask, what's the word? If the user input is a digit, or well, the each digit method here doesn't check if, for example, it's a negative number. It just checks for numbers. So I'm going to say user input starts with something like negative here, like this. Raise value error, and I'm going to generally handle value errors. By saying that the input was invalid. Okay. Otherwise, if we don't encounter that error, just return the user input. Okay, this is it for this function. Now I have to go to the API and check how it is written to know how I'm going to implement the API in my code here. So let's go and do that. This is the API that I'm going to be using, and as you can see, this API returns the data in a JSON format, and this is an example of the word hello. So we see that this is going to be a list, and it is going to have one element, one dictionary, and what we're going, when we look at this, what we need here is to access this phonetics here, the key, and this is again going to be a list, and the other key that we would need here from this is going to be the audio, which is going to give us the URL for the audio file. And as you can see here, this has multiple pronunciations. There are words that have only one, and there are words that have none, so I have to again pay attention to that when I write the code. And another thing here is that if there is if the word doesn't exist in the dictionary, for example, let's go with the example KKK, we see that the API doesn't return a list here. It doesn't give a list. It is just one dictionary. So that's how I can tell if a word is defined in here or not. So let's get the HTTPS here so that I can access it in my code. Alright, now we can go back and write the code. Okay, I need to import requests. I'm going to say this one, name this one get data. And it's going to have a parameter n, which is going to be the word that the user has defined. Okay, let's see if we can access the data. So I'm going to say response is going to be requests.get. And this is going to be returned to us in a JSON format. Okay. the error handling. But if you can't get the data, there's nothing else you can do here. So I'm just going to exit the program. Okay, so one way that we can see if the word is valid, it has a definition in the dictionary, is to check if what we get is a list or not. So here I'm just going to say if not so if what we get is not a list, then again exit the program and say that there was no definition in the dictionary. Okay, now that we have a definition for the word in the dictionary, we need to first access the value of the first key, phonetics. I'm going to name this variable again phonetics. It is going to be the response. So as you have seen, it is going to be a list first, and the list had only one element. So it is going to be index 0. And it was phonetics. Now I have to check if this is actually empty or not. So if it is not empty, let me actually write that later. I'm going to say if it is empty though, again exit the program and say that no pronunciation for the word. Okay. If there is a phonetics, if the phonetics is not empty, it is going to be a list. It can have multiple elements. So I'm going to check that. I'm going to say for E in phonetics, okay, what I'm going to get now is the value of the key audio from this phonetics, basically these dictionaries within the phonetics. So I'm going to say audio is going to be the phonetics. It is a list in its index. And the key is audio. Okay. I'm going to add these URLs to a list, and I think that is what I want this function to return. The list of the audio URLs. Okay. It's an empty array. And for each one, we are going to add it. Okay, and that is it. I want this to be returned. Return audio URL. Okay, so this is just about the formatting. All right, now I am going to write my main function. So So what I'm going to first get is the word from the user. So I'm going to say word and assign it to the return value of the get word function. Okay, and now I am going to say the audio URLs are going to be what the get data returns with the parameter word. All right. Now what we want to do is we want to access these URLs, right? The files within the URLs, right? So I'm going to say try. Again, we're going to call it response dot get. Actually, let me. I have to go first write the for loop because this is a list, can have multiple elements. So I'm going to say for again e in audio URLs. We are going to try to see to access that. If I couldn't, because there are multiple elements here, I'm just going to say print that couldn't access the audio file. Okay, but if we could, okay, so this is a URL. For our player to be able to play these sounds, we need to have them. We need to have the files locally, at least in the way that I know how to write it. So I am going to first create temporary files of these URLs in the computer, in the local disk, and then I'm going to play them. And then as soon as they are done, I'm going to have them deleted from the computer, from the locally. Okay, so for that I am going to import a temp file. Named temporary. Let me actually check. I keep forgetting the name of this. Yeah, it is named temporary file. Okay. So here I'm going to say I'm going to set the delete parameter true, because we want to delete the file locally after we are done with the file. And then as we had seen in the API, for the value in the audio key is going to be an MP3. So I'm going to say the suffix is going to be MP3. I'm going to name it temp file. Okay. So we are going to write to this file. It's going to be the response and the content. All right. Now here I'm going to use a method called flush. I'm going to explain what that does. Okay, so when we want the files to be immediately written to the disk, to be able to to be able to, for the player to be able to play them with no it can get stuck in the internal memory if we don't do this, and the player can possibly not be able to access it. This ensures that the file is written to the disk by the time the player wants to play the sound. Okay? And then for the player, I'm going to import VLC. And I want it to play temp 5. And I'm just going to say that the player should play it. Now another thing that I'm going to add here is this. I want the computer to keep checking if the audio file is being played or not well, this is going to be just one pronunciation, so I'm going to say check every 0.3 seconds, and then if it is, go through the next one. If it is not, just wait for it to finish, stuff like that. So we're going to say while player get state actually I'm going to have to import time here. So we set check every 0.3 seconds. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Let me check. And then this is a for loop, so it will keep on trying to do that. So that's correct. And I might later on want to import certain functions from here. So I'm going to actually write it like this. These are all about formatting, so there's no problem with the code itself. Let's run it and see if we encounter an error. I'm going to say it is apple.
Apple. Apple.
Okay. There were 2 instances of the pronunciation. Let's go to another one. Let's call it cupboard.
Cupboard. Cupboard. Cupboard.
Alright. And we can check for some things that are not in here. For example, I'm not sure exactly what is not in here, but let's say something like this. Couldn't access the audio file. Let's say
management.
very nice. Well, we can play
Management.
around. Well, we can play around with this, and we are going to encounter some words that have no pronunciations in here, but we have handled them, so the program will let us know. And this is the end of this video, and thank you very much for watching.